Oh, it was recording.
Good evening. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Dreamstruck. We are so excited because this is the week of Thanksgiving, and it's definitely the month that we all have an opportunity to purposely show our gratitude to each other and to others. And what better way to do this tonight than to say thanks and share gratitude with Scentsi's very first consultant ever, Dini Moorehouse. So Dini, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with all of your great to infinity grandchildren. And we also have other superstar directors. So we're about 7 of us. And every Tuesday night we meet for about an hour and go over all the things. Last week we had Dan Dan Orchard. And so we have Emily Goodneck. Emily, if you could wave. We have Amber Turner. We have Kelly Rashal, we have Debbie Pitts-Palmer, Carol, Bishop Hauk, and then myself. And so we will just kind of circle around as we enjoy this evening with you. So welcome and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for that warm welcome. And it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. So I know that, so I have had the pleasure, and so many of us other directors and above have heard the story of how Scentsi's got started. And so we've heard it from Heidi and Orville. We've heard it from Chuck's perspective. We heard it from Dan's perspective, and also Colette. But we would love to hear from your perspective, Scentsi's first consultant. How did it all begin for you?
Well, so back in 2004, my husband, let me just say this. Orville and Sean, my husband, knew each other previously. I didn't know who Orville was, and he didn't know who I was. However, after Orville had met Karen Collette at the One Home and Garden show and brought home testers, he called Sean and said, "Hey, I have come up, or I've been introduced to this great idea. What do you think?" And Sean said, "Oh my gosh, that's incredible. We're so in." And Orville was like, I don't want any partners. I'm just asking you what you think. And so Sean asked him some questions, asked him how he was gonna, get it out there. And Orville talked retail. And I don't know really what possessed Sean to say this, but he said, "Hey, my wife has experience in direct selling. So why don't you meet her? Let me introduce you guys." And so he was open to it. We met and talked about things and decided to collaborate. So I got to work shortly thereafter on the consultant handbook. And what was fun for me is, so first of all, I took that from all the experiences that I had before. So, I had done way back in the ancient days, I had done Tupperware. I had done, Mary Kay and Pampered Chef. And I just signed up for Southern Living at Home. Like, I literally did one party with them and met Orville, and the rest is history. So I got to work on the consultant handbook and naming the ranks and, introducing or starting our awards program. That was all fun and exciting stuff. It was stressful to even think that I could put together a consultant handbook. But when I turned it over to Orville, he, from what I recall, was pleased with what he saw, and that was a good beginning. But there's all kinds of little things, from like your list of 100 to our order forms, just to little things that I used because of my experience previously, and put my own touch or twist on, not twist, but I'm twisted, but not the twist there. Carol knows that. Kind of like Carol's twisted there. I'm right there with her. Anyway, so I need to not joke around because then I lose my train of thought. Okay. So we continued to work from there. And then in May, we went to Karen Collette and Orville and I went to Seattle to the women's, I think it was called a women's show in Seattle. And we wanted to pretty much see how it was received and kind of make further decisions from there. So it was really well received and we were pleased. And, you know, I was learning from Kara and Colette because I had the testers, but I didn't have the testers. I had seen the testers, been introduced, but I'd never really heard Kara and Colette give their pitch. So once I started hearing what they had to say, and you know how sweet they are, especially Colette. I don't know how many of you know Kara because she hasn't been very visible. She's very active. She just hasn't been visible the last few years, but they were both just out there, and I can't even remember how they were drawing people in, but it was perfect. And their sweetness, I mean, you just can't say no to that, right? So I was kind of watching and learning. And if you've ever seen the pictures of us in the very beginning, I feel like Kara and Colette looked the same. I had big hair and I was about 20 pounds lighter. So things have changed a little bit. I have way less hair and it's way more gray, but you know, I just consider that my children, my grandchildren, Sensi, you know, all the fun experiences that have added to that. And so Orville, I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think he brought stuff. Either he brought some stuff with him, he didn't bring anything with him. He went to Kara and Colette and brought all of their inventory back. And it was actually like in a storage unit. So when I went to see it, it was in this big storage unit. But when we got together to work, we went into that old barn that you hear about. And I'm sure that, you know, you've heard about to this point, and the ocean container. So both of those things are our office, if you will, things that we worked, or places that we worked out of. None of them were glamorous, quite the opposite, far from it. So, you know, you work with what you have when you have it. And at this point, we didn't know anything different. We just knew we were starting a company and trying to work together. We collaborated to get it up and off the ground. So I have a really unique, kind of story/perspective in that as I was trying to build Sensi, very soon thereafter, I was also trying to build my own business, but my main focus was Sensi, the company. And, you know, we did the whole pouring of the bars, and Sean would pour bars, Orville would pour. There were many people pouring bars. We would shrink wrap them with like a big commercial sized blow dryer and then throw them out and sticker them. And at the time, you know, those plastic drawers that you can get, you can stack them. They're maybe 2 foot wide. That's how little warmers we had, that every scent had its own little pull drawer. And so when we pulled our orders, we would just go, you know, let's see, baked apple pie, and so they were in alphabetical order, and there weren't that many. There certainly weren't 80, with every month having a new one introduced. So it was simple, and it wasn't, because like I said, we didn't know any different. So you make do with what you have. You know, we'd get a phone call now and again, and I would pretend like we were just this very established company. Thank you for calling Sensi. This is Dini. How can I help you? And hope and pray that I knew the answer to whatever was coming at me on the other end of the line, right? But things were faxed in. Orders were faxed in with checks. They were mailed in. You know, there was no online ordering. We didn't even have an online presence. So it wasn't until there was enough money saved up that we could afford software. And that at that time, we then were able to have our online presence. Gosh, what we have today, I couldn't have even dreamed of. The tools that we have today, I mean, I thought it was pretty great that we had a workstation, right? That we could go in, we could place our own orders. I mean, that was just like leaps and bounds. But today what we have, it is just, it blows my mind. Not only that, just the whole, going over, I'm such a baby and I hate it when I do this. Looking at things, thinking back on those times, there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm grateful. I wouldn't have changed a thing. I've learned lots of lessons, business lessons, life lessons, you name it. Some were good and some weren't, but I'm all the better for it because those were lessons for me. But, there was a time when, if any of you on here from Meridian or the area, we had this huge company called the J-Bill Company, and it was just down from the barn in the ocean container. And I remember Orville and I, we had just kind of walked out in the road and we were looking down the road. It wasn't a busy road that we were on. We looked over and Orville said, "You know what, Dini, one of these days we're going to need that building." And I said, "You think so?" He goes, "Yeah, we're going to need that building." Well, I can tell you that Sensi Commons is much bigger and better than that building we had hoped and dreamed and planned on needing. So it was just one of those, hi. So let me just explain this to you real quick or tell you where I'm at. So as a family, we came to a place called McCall, Idaho. It's up in the mountains. So we're getting lots of snow. It looks beautiful outside. Well, unfortunately, Sean had to drive back down the mountain today and he's just getting back. So that's who I was. Come show your face real quick so they can know who's responsible for the thought of having me introduced to Orville. Let me just introduce you to this hunk of a man.
Hi, everybody.
Carol's on there.
Hey, Carol.
CBH.
I was by your house today.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
well, hopefully it's still intact because my
where are you at,
18-year-old's
Carol?
home alone. We're in Phoenix.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Much warmer place.
yes.
So anyway, he's just getting back. Sorry for the distraction. This is my life. So hold on. Can you close the door, please? These people, you'd think they were raised in a barn. Just kidding. I raised them. So yeah. And so to look at Sensi Commons now just blows me away. Not just that, but to think that not only are we outside of Idaho, we're outside of the United States. And, it's not just Canada and Mexico that we're in, but all of the countries that we're in now. Not in my wildest dreams did I think that would happen. And it's not that I didn't have big enough goals, big enough dreams, but at the time I was so focused on being the only consultant to work the business and get it up and running from a consultant view or consultant, perspective. So, we went and did our thing, both building Sensi and then building my business. The very first party, Orville and Heidi, kind of were like, be on your way, let us know when you're done. And our catalog was a little black and green striped photo album from Walmart that had some sleeves in it. It was only like as big as, a little bit bigger than like the 4x6 pictures. So clearly it wasn't fancy, but it had the pictures in there and Heidi had taken the pictures and we kind of had little indicators as to like a code as to what was what, right? So back then the warmers were like DSW, deluxe Sensi warmer dash, and then whatever the 3 letters were to represent that. Yeah, we couldn't do that these days because we have so many, and the scents were the same way. It was SB for Sensi Bar dash, and then like the BAP for baked apple pie. It was really simple. Now, I have to really think twice when people go, "Oh, do we have da 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 da?" or "Did we ever have?" And if it's the really early days, I can go, yeah, for sure we had it. But there have been so many scents coming and going over the years that it's crazy. Yeah, so let me go back to the party. I finished up the party. It went really well. Keep in mind, I was just shooting from the hip. I didn't really know what a party was going to look like because I was making it up as I went. But it seemed to go really good. So I got in the car and I called Heidi and Orville, and you could just tell they were so excited. Okay, tell us all about it. Tell us how it went. Now tell us, where are you with the party? Where did it end up? And I said, well, I'm at $147 right now. And you could hear the, and I'm like, wait. This is direct sales. This is a home party. It's not over. The party isn't complete. So my personal work days, if you will, were for sure Thursdays. Right? Thursday evenings were my night for sure to go out at this point. So it was a Thursday night, and I explained to them how the hostess and I were partners in doing this party, this home party, and that I had broken everything down for her, left the testers with her, left catalogs with her. And now it was her job to get people there that weren't there in person to get to smell and experience Scentsy, right? Because there's nothing like it. And that was my job, to coach and make sure she understood what the plan was and what her responsibility was after I was there. So simple hostess coaching, right? I don't remember what the grand total was of that party, but I do remember a party where nobody showed up, not a soul. So the hostess and I sat there and we visited about life, about Scentsy, about motherhood, you name it. And again, through some coaching, I said, now you need to, explain to her that she needed to call her guests and get them over to experience, because once they experienced Scentsy, they would just get it, right? Especially people that enjoyed fragrance. And that party with nobody in attendance, all I remember is that it was well over $800. We're talking, 17 years ago. So that was a pretty good party. And really, it all had to do with us visiting, planning, making a plan, and doing some kind of coaching so that she understood we were partners in this. We were partners in, helping her get what she wanted out of Scentsy. So there were some, goofy times, and more than I can even recall. But like I said, those were times that we either laughed at or we learned from. My daughter Ruby, who will be 20 in about 4 weeks, she was like 2.5. Her and Gracie were about the same age. Yeah, they were right around the same age. I remember Grace potty training at the office. This is when we were big time. It was our very first office. So we were actually paying rent in a building. And it was just like, we have made it. We can afford to rent this office space. It was small. It was a really small office space. But we rented that. The break room turned into a playroom. We had a fridge in there. We had a little table. And get this, with a TV VCR. So the girls, I feel so ancient when I say that. So the girls could play with toys. There was a table their size, and watch movies. We would just pop the VCR tapes in and out as they needed them, but they wandered, through the office. This is kind of a gross memory, but it is what it is. So one day Grace got sick and she started puking, and we had this big blue plastic bowl. I mean, it was big. Well, being ghetto-licious back then, we used that bowl to scoop the styrofoam peanuts to pour in the boxes. And the first thing that came to mind was, Grace, use this. And when she was done being sick, and we washed it out, we just kept on going with our shipping. So that's life, right? We take what it gives us and we roll with the punches, or we do away with it. It's our choice. but those are some really fun memories. Being a big city girl, I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. However, my husband and I have raised our 6 children in Meridian, Idaho for the last 30 years. Like in January, we'll be married 32 years. We have 3 boys and 3 girls. And, you know, there was a time when it's always been a family business, but there was a time where the kids were young enough that I would say, let's go have family night at the office. And we'd get an assembly line set up. And, you know, we'd set up the fold away tables, and I would tell the boys, you start at this end, you come over here and you go on that end. And at the time we had these chintzy little white cardboard boxes that the warmers were shipped in, because we certainly couldn't afford, didn't even think of designing our own at the time. We needed to get up and off the ground. So one boy would take the warmer out of the box and take the light bulb out, because at the time they came with a 40-watt light bulb. I mean, there was those big rubber like trash cans that you put out front, full of light bulbs, right? That were, and I can't remember what we did with them, honestly, but we didn't just trash them. We placed them in there softly, and I don't know where they went. But anyway, so they got the correct wattage. Then it got passed down. The next boy would put it in a box and get it, ready to ship. At one time, it was just the striped box. Then the thought came, well, let's put a band around the box. That was so time consuming and frustrating, because we had to actually put the band together, and it didn't always work well, and then slide the band once it was on over the box again, which didn't always work well. And then the boxes the boxes started coming with the band printed on it. So as you can see, we learned as we went. We had to experience some things, and then see if it wasn't working 100%, we would find a better way, right? There had to be a better solution, a better time saver, a better use of our time. So, yeah. And then I can't remember, I think all my girls were still pretty young. So they would be running around the office or out back behind the building. I remember specifically that they would deliver these, I don't know what you would call them, these flat, big, huge square thing of wax that would be melted down in the big, huge, tall stainless steel, couldn't come up with that word, stainless steel pitcher over a warming plate. And this was all in the very back of the building. That's where the bars were being put together. So at the time, it was a clear wax. I couldn't lift just one of those squares. That's how heavy they were. It was impossible. I mean, Carol may have been able to lift them. I couldn't lift them, and I was a lot younger then. So I just couldn't do it. It was even hard for Orville. So those things would be broken down, melted down in the pot, and then they needed the fragrance to be added. Thereafter, they needed some kind of color, right? So we had these wax color chips around, and I remember, asking Orville, so do you have a recipe? Do you have, and he's like, no, why? And I'm like, well, so that the bars come out the same color every time they get poured. He's like, I'll remember. Sure you will. And so they weren't always the exact same color, but they weren't, way off by any means. But that's what went into the bar. I remember before we were official, sitting in the hot tub with one of my friends, explaining to her what I was doing and, all the good stuff. And I was like, should we call these chunks of wax a bar or a brick? We decided on bar, but thank goodness, because, then later, many years later, we introduced the brick. So these are all just kind of fun memories that, for me, that are fun to think about. And, always, but especially this time of year, I reflect on, and I'm just humbled and grateful for the opportunity that I had to participate in that and to help get Scentsy up and off the ground. I have to be blessed by, everything that Scentsy has put into my life. all of you wonderful people here, dear friends like Carol and so many others. My life has been so enriched. And so in McCall, let me just change things a little bit. We're in McCall, we have a timeshare. So we rented out 6 different condos here so that my mom and dad could be here, and our adult kids with their families. And then speaking of dear friends, if any of you know Jess Markowitz, who lives in Las Vegas, they're driving here. She's a superstar director, to join us here. They wanted to see snow. They wanted to play in the snow. And they're going to get that because it's been snowing all day. So as my mom and dad and I were at breakfast this morning, my dad said, thank you so much for being so generous with all of the things that you have. And I said, well, of course, Dad, I'm happy to do it. Like, you guys are my parents. I always want you guys to be part of it. And he said, we're just Mexican. So he's like, Mija, we're just so proud of you. And we're so grateful that you've, come this far and you're able to do these things. And I just said, you know what? I said, thank you. That means a lot. But I'm so grateful that I'm able to do these things too, because never in my wildest dreams did I see myself as anything other than a housewife. Because before I met Orville, I was that domestic engineer, changing diapers, wiping butts, scrubbing toilets, and I loved it. That's exactly where I wanted to be. And we had some difficult financial times, but that was a decision we made. Sorry. For me to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom and have Sean, do what he could to provide for us. There were times where he had 3 jobs every single day, but we were able to keep me home with the kids. And hello, I felt like I was always pregnant with that many kids. So, I really didn't see myself owning a business, and certainly not being in the position that I am now. I am so grateful. And not a day goes by, honestly, not a day goes by with me not being in awe of the opportunity that I've been given, and for having the blessing of being in the right place at the right time and having everything come together. It's been wonderful. Like I said, we've had our ups and our downs. Orville and I would fight like brother and sister, and then we'd make up, and then, it would happen again, just like siblings do. But, we've known each other for long enough now, and it's been great. We've been able to watch, I need to suck it up. We've been able to watch each other's kids grow up and get married, excuse me, and go on missions and you name it. So we've been able to experience some very special things and, being part of each other's lives as Sensi came up. So, sorry, but I am so grateful, for this opportunity tonight to share my story. I almost feel like, everybody's heard it, but I'll share it anyway. And I just found out not too long ago that not everybody knows my story. Not everybody knows that there's still a first consultant around working her business. And that's what I do, because all of you that understand the compensation plan understand that none of us just get to, build a business and then sit back and cool our heels. I mean, it is a continual commitment, and it's a fun commitment that obviously we're doing it because we enjoy it. We love what we're doing. And for me, not only did my husband introduce me to Orville and the collaboration began, but fragrance was something that was huge in my life. I mean, I love the hair products to smell good. Like, if the hairspray didn't smell good, I wasn't using it. From lotions to soaps to, actual fragrances that I would wear. all of those things were huge. So it was such a perfect fit whenever not whenever, but when everything was set in place, it was really a perfect fit. And, then great people came along and continued to help Scentsy be built, like Carol, like Becky Priest. I mean, some of the very early people like Kara and Colette. And I'm so grateful that, a little while into Scentsy, they decided to also become consultants, because in the beginning they weren't consultants, but they decided to become consultants. And so I'm honored to say that they're on my team. And, I love those two ladies. Colette and I are definitely closer than me and Kara, because Kara's still in those very busy raising kid stages. And Colette and I have kids that are grown now and out of the house. So we're kind of in that same era, if you will, of our lives. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun. And, I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. Now, some things have changed clearly with compensation plan, with awards and, things of that nature, but they changed as we've evolved. And so those have been good changes. So that's pretty much my story. Did you have anything in particular, anything else, Carol, or anybody that you wanted me to share?
Of course we do. Everyone, we warned everyone, bring your tissues, because anytime we hear from you or Heidi, it's a guarantee, tearjerker. And then it's such a good way, because we hope that that you are a world changer. You have changed the world through your faith journey with Scentsy. You have changed the world. And we listened to Heidi talk about the butterfly effect and the power of one. And I know that, there's many hands that were involved, in the beginning days of Scentsy. But we want you to know how important your hands are. When we look across this Zoom, I mean, there's almost 300,000 consultants, and you helped birth that. And that's amazing. You only live once, but to be able to live this life and know that you've impacted the world is amazing. And so, yes, each of us, we have been watching the chats and watching the tears. And there are questions that have come through. One of the things that I would like for you to, if you don't mind, you touched on it just a moment ago, but sometimes people see others at the very top. Oh my goodness, she's an entrepreneur. She's the first consultant. She can travel the world. She can do all these things, but they don't know the struggle. They don't know, the pain, the tears, the arguments. But also before Scentsy, I remember watching an interview, and I think that you mentioned even being, I think either on welfare or food stamps or something, where you were trying to take care of your family. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
You bet. You're such a good interviewer. So my husband's specialty is commercial real estate, and he loves doing it. He loved doing it back then, but he was still in the very early stages of doing his commercial real estate. And as with anything sales, you get paid when the sale closes. And in commercial real estate, you're dealing with a lot of money, a lot of very wealthy people, and some people that aren't very kind. He would do a deal, it would take him forever, and then at the end they would decide, you know what, we really don't want to pay you a commission, but thanks for your help. So things like that would happen, and things like him working on a deal taking 3 years to close, to get paid. He'd get paid a good lump sum. However, it was my job to be able to spread that money, because we didn't know when we'd get paid again. It was, feast or famine. But I wanted to make sure, it was like my role and responsibility to make sure there wasn't a feast or famine, but that I could keep it kind of in the middle, right? So before I joined Scentsy, we were struggling. It was before Scentsy, and just before. And so we were trying to get on our feet when Scentsy started. But my Maisie, who was just older than Ruby, So she's our second to the last one. She is our Medicaid baby because we couldn't do it on our own. And I went and I got us some assistance. And so we had food stamps and we had WIC. And I went with a very humble heart, knowing that this was going to be temporary, that we just needed assistance for just enough to get us kind of over the hump, right? And I'll never forget the day that I went in to apply. I was very anxious. I felt like I don't know what I'm doing. I know I need to be here. I know we need to do this. Let me just, get through the paperwork and go. There was an older gentleman there, and he sat down right next to me and he said, "Would you mind helping me fill out my forms?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "I can't read, so I just need you to help me fill these out, if you will." And he was very kind, and yet again, a very humbling experience. So I was there to get help. I had an opportunity to offer help at that same time. So yeah, those are some very humbling times. And so understand, with me, or with us, we have seen the famine. We have lived in the famine. And we've been able to experience financial stability, which I'm so grateful for. But know that I've been there. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to go and have to, humbly ask for the assistance. I know what it's like to have to put on my big girl pants and actually use the food stamps. I didn't want to be that person in line. I didn't want to hold everyone up. I didn't want to, but we needed food, so it had to be done. So I'm really grateful for that type of assistance. But yeah, that's my story there. By the time Ruby was born, we were on our way to, we were doing well enough to be off assistance. We weren't doing well, but we were doing well enough that we were no longer receiving assistance. And that was, that was a good time as well. But yeah, that's that part of my story.
We're reading the chats here, and there are others that can really resonate with your story. They might be where you were several years ago, and we just want to give hope to anyone and know that this business does not discriminate, that there is no roof or cap in the possibilities in our each of our journeys. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to pass the torch over to Kelly Rashaw. She has a question for you.
Okay.
So thank you for being vulnerable. I was trying to hold it together. Yeah. And all I need to ask about is a damn warmer. But I've heard this story at least 5 times. And I've never, ever felt what you gave us tonight. Nor have I ever gotten emotional on one of these calls. But I think you hit home tonight because it really, really touches base with so many people. And Dini, I was you as well. I was on assistance and I was on it for just a little bit. And we made it. We finally made it out, and we can show so many people the way. And so thank you for being vulnerable tonight, because now I'm a hot mess. And I just want to know what your favorite warmer and bar has been over the years. I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Can everybody else hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know how I did that to myself, but I did. I don't know about my favorite warmer. There have been so many, but some of my top bars have been, it was Home Sweet Home, and then it changed to My Home. I don't know if any of you remember that. Also, Enchanted Mist is another favorite of mine. And at one time, Lucky in Love was, but that was kind of short-lived, but I remember that. So the two that I remember specifically, as far as my all-time favorites are concerned, are those two for sure. I really enjoyed Jasmine, so Enchanted Mist was a big hit with me. And I just loved with the Home Sweet Home, the ability to, I felt like it was a good, like if you didn't know, if you were given a gift and you didn't know what somebody liked as a fragrance, for me, in my mind, I thought that was a very middle of the road. It wasn't too spicy. It wasn't too fruity. It wasn't too florally. It was just kind of right there in the middle. Cause I know not everybody loves vanilla. There's some
Mhm.
people that really, they're like, yeah. And in my lack of knowledge, when I first started, I thought, oh, vanilla, everybody loves vanilla. No, I learned very quickly that vanilla is not a crowd favorite. And we all have different sniffers. And so it's a very personal choice, just like the clothes we wear or the way we style our hair or anything else in our life. It's very personal choice, which fragrances, our sniffer decides to use and we decide to incorporate in our everyday life.
I think we got it, you guys. What scent do you not like? What's your worst smelling scent? Nobody ever asked that question.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that. Oh, there was one. I don't think it was Cozy Fireside, but I remember getting it and opening up the bar and smelling it, and I was so ticked off. And Sean's like, "What's the matter?" And I'm like, "I hate things that smell bad." And I was just ticked. I don't think it was Cozy Fireside. It was something kind of woodsy though, but it was real pungent. Patchouli was not my favorite. That just was not a favorite of mine. Never has been. So, but there are things that I never thought I'd like the pine smells that have grown on me. Not a real strong pine. And I love the mixtures and the variations of pine and fir that have been introduced. Those are nice. And I know that there's people that would take pine and mix it with berries. And, that's the beauty of having the soft wax, all the different things we can come up with as far as mixing our own things together is concerned.
I'm a mixer. So thank you so much for your time tonight. And I am going to pass you over to Amber Turner.
Okay.
Hey, Dini, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You bet.
I don't think I've ever cried on a Dreamstruck, but when you started crying and then Kelly started crying, y'all got me all up in my feels tonight. Home Sweet Home Turns My Home is my all-time favorite scent as well. I have it in my club. It's coming back for Bring Back My Bar, everyone, in January. So you have got to get a shot. Trust Dini and I. It is the best scent ever. Okay, so I have a question from Edna, and she wants to know what your advice is on building team culture.
Oh, building team culture. Well, you have to, I can only tell you what I've done. And that is starting from the very beginning, basically setting the tone, setting the example. And, so on my team page, there's no negativity. And if somebody new comes on and starts to, spout off something that's not positive and not a good contribution, we'll nip it immediately and message them privately and very lovingly say, this isn't the place for it. None of us have the energy for that. And we don't want to bring that vibe into the team. There is a solution. Let's look for the solution. So I love that on my team page, if somebody says, hey, Dini, blah, 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 and I don't get to it immediately, boy, there's just others pitching in. I know the answer, let me get this, let me get that. And so that's what, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but that's pretty much how I do it. And we just maintain a really uplifting, lighthearted team culture. But my big number one is, there's nothing negative allowed here. And if they have something negative, if they have something negative, we can message each other. Okay, so I interrupt this program to tell you there's Ruby. My girls just got here. Tatum. There's Tatum, my oldest. Maisie. Yes, she doesn't want to be shown, but they just, my keys.
The extra keys.
Oh, I don't I don't know. I'll be with you momentarily. So yeah, they just got here from making the 2.5-hour drive in the snow. So, but
Well, we
yeah, that's
definitely don't want to keep you. So I'm going to pass it very quickly over to Debbie Pitts-Palmer so she can ask you our next question.
awesome. Hey, Debbie.
We might circle back to Debbie. I don't know if she's muted, but we can pass it to Emily and circle back to DPP.
Hi, Dini. So thankful for you and coming on and sharing with all of us. It's been too long.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
You too. So we have a question from a consultant named Mel, and her question says, as Scentsy has evolved as a worldwide business, how have you adjusted your sales structure, to support your customers and your overall business?
Okay, read that one more time.
Sure.
As Scentsy has evolved.
As Scentsy has evolved as a worldwide business, how have you adjusted your sales structure and that of your team or your overall business?
So with, I've kind of just pushed and plugged along. And the thing with sales and introducing the opportunity to other people that live in other countries is kind of trying to get their culture, because even in regions within the state, so like every year I go do the stock show and rodeo, and I can't have enough weathered leather on hand. I mean, my return customers every year will say, you got the weathered leather? I'll take 12. And so I feel bad, but sometimes I can say, oh, I've got 6. You can come back at the end of the rodeo. Maybe I'll get more in, because when they all want it, I feel bad. It's like, I can't sell out of all my bars in the first 2 days, right? Because I'm there for like 2.5, almost 3 weeks. So, but as far as sales are concerned, oh, that's what I was gonna say. And then I would go over to where Debbie lives. I'd go to Birmingham, I'd go to Memphis, and I would do women's expos over there. And they wanted nothing to do with weathered leather, but in that area, they loved sweet. So blueberry cheesecake was a huge seller over there. So as far as sales are concerned, I feel like I really had to learn the culture, the culture of the area to understand what would be appealing to them. And as far as worldwide is concerned, again, having and needing to understand for sure their culture, their traditions, and working with that. All of it pretty much starts with the basics, right? And then you tweak it a little bit when you have a different situation or a different opportunity, and you just tweak it so that it works with whoever you're selling to or sharing the opportunity with, or just, sharing the greatness of Scentsy. You just kind of have to have it go down the lane that leads to them. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, that was good. That was good. And as far as supporting your team, I mean, obviously you're everywhere and your organization is huge. So how are you managing a lot of that now?
So I have a big group page, obviously, and I've got my team. So what I do is I support my personal team very well, and I support others, but I really depend on my leaders, and I make sure that my leaders know what their responsibility is and why they get paid what they get paid, why we get bonuses. It's not just, so we can kick back, but because we're doing more work as leaders, and we're training people and hopefully training them to duplicate some of the things that we do and how we practice and build our business. So I really depend on my leaders, both directors, star directors, superstar directors, to be supporting their own teams and groups. And I'm always there. And I always open myself up and welcome people that have different directors or leadership all the way on up to, if there's a break in communication or personality, and it happens, I always tell them that I want them to go to their upline first. If for some reason it doesn't get solved or they don't get an answer to their question, they're always welcome to text, message, call me, whatever. So yeah, depending on my leaders to really train and maintain their teams really well is really what I depend on.
That's good. That's good. And it's a good system. It's a good system. So we have Debbie. She was having a bit of service issue, but it looks like she's got that back now. I'm gonna throw it over to her so she can share.
Hi, my Dini.
Hey.
I have to tell you guys my Dini experience. When I joined Cincy, I went out there trying to search for events. And that was this one particular event that Dini mentioned. And they said, well, you can't get this event because somebody already has it. I said, well, who? And they said, Dini Moorehouse. I went and Googled who she was because I didn't know who she was. And it showed me First Consultant. I was like, oh, First Consultant. Oh, my goodness. So I remember when I went to Reunion, it was called Convention back then. It was in Denver. And I had a list of all those people that I wanted to meet. And Dini was at the top because I came to know her from searching for events. I said, I'm going to meet her because when she comes to Birmingham, I want to learn from her. So I remember Dini walking across the stage, and I was sitting in my seat on the edge of my seat. As soon as she walked down that stage, I ran over there to meet her. I jumped up. I said, she probably think I'm some crazy person coming over here to meet her. But she was so
like,
humble.
Security.
Just kidding. She was super sweet, so humble. She hugged me. I said, Dini, I live in Birmingham, Alabama. Can I come to observe you at the booth when you come back? She said, sure. So we exchanged information, and sure enough, I came there to observe her booth. I took pictures and everything, and that's my first Dini experience. So she's so approachable, so super humble, so sweet. And I also learned that we had so much in common. And after hearing her statement tonight, something I did not know before, when she mentioned that she was on aid, I know I've been there. I've been on public aid. I've been on welfare. I've been on food stamp. I've been on Section 8 housing. I also have a special needs brother who's autistic. And I know that Dini has a brother that has special needs. So we have a lot in common. And I really look up to Dini. I am so grateful that Dini is where she is now, because we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for her idea. So I cannot say enough how grateful that we all are. I love you so much, Dini. That's my Dini. I always call her my Dini. So I love you.
I love you too, Debbie. And I will say kudos to Debbie, because she is one woman that will not be stopped. When she sees something she wants, man, it's a beeline for it. And I remember was it the first year that, I can't remember, but it was one of the first years Debbie said, hey, will you come and do a training for my team? And as any of you know that do shows, they're taxing. And so, by nearing the end of the show, you've been on your feet and on that concrete for up to 10 hours every day. And I just said, sure. And I would just drag my butt on over. But in one day, the first time, 24 hours, Debbie had this room set up. I don't know how she did it. She got that wand and bippity boppity booed it. And there was like tables with settings and centerpieces that were Scentsy colors. And I was just impressed. And so the times that Debbie had ever asked me to go and do some training, and it happened pretty much yearly for a while, I was always happy to do it. And, again, I got to meet and befriend people in that area as well. So yeah, strong work, Debbie.
I miss Debbie, but I miss the food.
All right. Well, gearing up.
We love Sean. We love Sean.
Yeah, we're gearing up to the end of the hour, and I know Carol's going to close us out. I wish that I had a glamorous first meet story that I could share, but Dini, you probably don't remember, but the first time I ever met you, I saw you in South Africa, but I was afraid to talk to you. And I talked to you in Cancun, and I tripped over some of the production lighting, and I literally fell on you and you caught me. And so that was my introduction to Dini Moorehouse, the first consultant. I was like, ah, but okay, we're gonna.
We literally ran into each other.
Yeah, literally, we ran into each other smack dab. So I was like, well, at least I met her.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Now, Carol is actually going to close us out this evening. Carol Bishop Houck.
I'm just kidding.
Carol, thank you so much for your connection and inviting Dini on. And we'll go ahead and let you close us out, Carol.
Well, Dini is my grandma, so just kidding. Even though we're so close in age. Anyway, I love Dini. I don't have a question for her, but I want you to tell them the chicken story about the chickens on the farm, because that is like my favorite story. And I just think everyone would love to go out on that note of the chicken story.
Okay. Well, let me share the chicken story from this big city girl's perspective. So when we were out working at the farm, it was an active sheep farm, and there were chickens on the ground. So having grown up in the big city, I wasn't exposed really to anything but small dogs, and that's what I was comfortable with. Anything bigger than that, I was kind of a ninny, and I didn't, if I didn't really know it, I was kind of afraid of it. So I knew there were chickens there, but never had a problem with them. And I pulled up one day, and it was like somebody had just let them out of a coop somewhere. And so I pulled up, and I was freaking out. And I called Orville, and I said, Orville, get down here. And he's like, what do you need? He was upstairs in the barn. And I said, there are chickens all around me. If I get out of this car, they're going to bite me. Well, they don't bite, but, in my mind, that's what my real fear was. And so he came down, and he stood in the doorway of the barn, and he's like, come on over here. I was really deathly afraid. And he's like, come on over here. And I'm like, get over here and help me right now. Well, I'm sure nobody will ever see him laugh like this, like I did, but he turned shades of red, almost purple from losing his breath. And I was ticked. I'm like, get over here and help me. I mean, because I was afraid. And then I'm like, and he's making fun of me. We ended up laughing it off. But, I was afraid of the chickens, and I was afraid of the sheep. And those sheep got out too. And they would always seem to get out when Orville was traveling. So Heidi and I would be running around like chickens with our heads cut off, chasing these stupid sheep down the road. And it was like a road. Cars were traveling on it. We weren't out in the sticks by any means. And now we have about 50 or 60 chickens of our own. So there's that.
It is such a good story. Well, Dini, we want to thank you for coming on tonight and for sharing with us. You have such valuable information. And for everyone who's on here tonight, I just want you to think about this, is that Dini did all of this and didn't have an upline. She did not have a sponsor. And so if some of you are using an excuse in this business that I don't have a great upline, so I'm not successful, you don't need one. And Dini's proof of that. Dini has done all of this, built. How many people are in your organization, Dini?
I want to say about 270,000.
270,000 people are underneath her without having a sponsor. And so if you really want something to happen, you can make it happen. And I think that's what we love about her being on here tonight, is that she's absolutely proof that you can do anything you want in this business and make anything happen. And
you can. Amen to that, Carol.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tonight. And we will chat with you, not next week because it's the end of the month, but then we'll be the week after.
Have a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving wherever you are.
Happy Thanksgiving. And we're so thankful for you, Dini. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.